So pelvic massage with a pelvic wand is a really great way to help ease pelvic floor tension, to help mobilize pelvic scars or pelvic floor muscles that are holding tension, and also a lovely way to connect with the pelvic floor to help feel safer with this area in your own body. What I'm using with this demonstration and what I recommend to my patients is the Intimate Rose pelvic wand. There are several varieties. There's just this plain one, the purple one. There's a green one which vibrates, and there's also one which has temperature control as well. You can either heat it or put it in the freezer. Go with whatever works best for you. There is no better or worse one. Some people prefer vibration. It can help to ease any tenderness, but they're all great. So before starting any wand work, it's really important to understand how breath works with the pelvic floor. Because in order to help ease tension in the pelvic floor and in order to help the nervous system feel safer with the pelvic floor being touched, breath is really foundational. If we're in a stress state, if we're feeling anxious, we're more likely to hold our breath, and there's more likely to be stiffness and lack of mobility in the pelvic floor. When we breathe, when we take a nice breath in, breathing into the ribs, the pelvic floor descends and lengthens like a trampoline, like something's jumping on the trampoline. Pelvic floor lengthens and descends. When we breathe out, there's a very natural rebound of these tissues. They contract and lift as we breathe out without even any conscious effort. So just breathing in this lovely 3D way allows the pelvic floor to do its lovely mobilization. So practice that 3D breathing, practice feeling this calm way of breathing before starting the pelvic wand use. So when you're comfortable with feeling the pelvic floor move and mobilize with your breath, then we can start to use the wand. Because if there's any tenderness, any tension when using the wand, we can always go back to that breath. You can breathe in knowing that your pelvic floor is lengthening and mobilizing. If it's uncomfortable, you can use your breath to target that particular area, to breathe into there to help lengthen it. Use your breath to help the nervous system settle if it's building up a stress response. So we always want to come back to the breath when doing the pelvic wand use. When you've done the breath work and you're feeling like you know what you're doing with the breath, and you're ready to use the wand, really important to use the wand in a space where you feel comfortable and safe, where you won't be interrupted. Because if you're in a busy space, if there's kids knocking at the door, if you're expecting a parcel to be delivered, the pelvic floor won't be able to fully relax, and you may not get the benefit from using the pelvic wand, and it may be more uncomfortable. So, quiet space, comfortable space, ideally laying down. You can have your pelvis supported with a pillow underneath. You can have calm music playing, you can have soft lighting. Think of intimacy. This isn't an intimate toy, it's not a sex toy, but it's self-care. So in the same way that you light candles and have music for a nice bath time, we're just helping the nervous system ease into using this wand as a part of self-care. Now there's two ways of using the wand. The first way is camel shape. Camel because there's a hump. Now we use the camel shape for entrance work at the vagina because you have good control over what's happening, and it's just the easiest way to access the vaginal entrance in this camel shape. If you're doing any deeper, more internal wand work, then we flip it into the snake shape. And it's snake because it's popping its head up out of the sand. This way you're able to get access to deeper areas of the pelvis where it pivots on this point here. So camel shape for mobilizing the perineum and the entrance of the vagina, snake shape for more deeper internal work. You also want to be using a really nice lubrication for this. I recommend Yes, because it's developed with vaginal pH in mind. Stuff off the shelf can not really be good for the vagina and vaginal fluids, so I really recommend going with Yes. It's a bit pricier, but it's so worth it to help maintain the delicate vaginal microbiome. So a little bit of pelvic floor anatomy first. We have a superficial layer here, which is called the urogenital triangle. Urogenital because we have the urethra and we have the vaginal entrance. This is the area where if you have a first or second degree tear that gets that has that tear, that scar tissue, but also if you have a third or fourth degree tear, it goes through this layer as well as the deeper muscles. So when we're holding the wand in the camel shape, we're really working on this more superficial area here. Now the pelvic floor itself is more like a bowl shape. So as we come inside, we're looking at the deeper layers of the pelvic floor. And when you're using the wand in the snake shape, we're able to access these very deep muscles here that support the pelvic organs and sit around the pelvic organs. So we have a superficial layer of muscles and a deep layer of muscles. This is just another view. This is 2D, so it's not quite as accurate. But here we have the superficial muscles of the pelvic floor, and when we turn it around, we have the deeper muscles. So this loop that comes from front to back, as well as fan-shaped muscles that form the side walls of the pelvic floor. Okay, meet Tiffany. Tiffany is my vulva model. She's made of silicone, so it's really good to show the external pelvic floor massage with the wand in camel shape. So you have your lubrication, you're in a calm, quiet space, you have plenty of time to ease into this. With the wand in the camel shape, you have really easy hold of the handle here. So you bring the wand to the perineum, to the vaginal entrance, and you can just start mobilizing up and down. So here we're working on any scar tissue around the vaginal entrance, if you have any, from a pelvic floor tear or from an episiotomy or from any surgery. So you can move up and down and you can move side to side. You're mobilizing all of those different areas of muscles where they attach. And the perineum is a real anchor point for the pelvic floor muscle, so this area is prone to becoming pretty tight. So as well as right at the vaginal entrance, moving up and down, you can also use the wand within the perineum itself and just really gently press into there, not with much pressure at all, just gently, and you can come either side of the perineum as well. If you hold the perineum against, hold the wand against the perineum here, you can then bend your knee in and out. And this just helps to get some mobilization of the tissues around the perineum and around this point. So that's if you are particularly stiff around this entrance point. And that can be the case if you have pain on intercourse, if you have pain with tampon insertion or menstrual cup insertion, or if you have pain with speculum exams. So camel shape, using lubrication right at the vaginal entrance, up, down, side to side, getting a good stretch and mobilization through there, and then you can come onto the perineum. So just spend a few minutes doing that. So if you're needing to do deeper internal work, this can be if you have pain on deeper penetration with intercourse, or deeper pelvic pain, pain on sitting too long, coccyx pain, tailbone pain. All of this can really benefit from deeper internal pelvic release. So we're going to use the lubrication on the pelvic wand, whoops, and that just dripped right onto Tiffany's vulva there, which is great. So use plenty of lubrication for this. Now remember, if we're doing internal work, we don't want to be in camel shape, we want to be in snake shape. So I'm going to be holding Tiffany in this position because this is easiest to do when you're on your back. So you're holding the wand, nicely lubricated in snake position, and you can just start by sliding the wand inside. We want to avoid directly back to 6 o'clock. So 6 o'clock being directly down. We want to avoid that because that's right where the rectum is. So as you enter, just come at a slight angle. Now remember that because you're in snake shape, what happens with the handle is the opposite of what happens at the other end. So if you turn the handle one way, what's happening internally is the opposite. And if you move this way, exactly the same. So what you're doing on the outside is the opposite of what's happening inside. So you can slide in, avoiding the rectum, and you can come in fairly deep. Now, the pressure that we want to use is as if you're testing the ripeness of a tomato, so it's not much pressure at all. And what you can do here, just to get the back tissues of the pelvic floor and deeper hip muscles that might be holding tension, is just gently lift that handle up, and then you're accessing those deeper parts of the pelvic floor. And you can either gently move up and down in a massaging, pulsing way, or if it's particularly tender and you're feeling a tension reaction, you can hold that pressure and work on your breath. Make sure that you're not clenching the buttocks or the thighs or your jaw or your shoulders. Let your whole body relax and use that lovely in-breath. Send messages of safety to your pelvic floor. You can say, thank you for trying to keep me safe, but you can let go now. Send the breath down to these tender points. Let them know that it's safe to ease up, that it's safe to let go. And you can hold that there as long as you need to. And you can move on to other spots. You can really explore the internal world of your pelvis, finding any tender spots. Now, if you want to come and do the other side, you lift up and then to the other side. Because remember, we want to lift up and over the rectum, which is on the back wall here. I'll show you on a different pelvic model in a minute. So exactly the same thing. You're coming onto the other side and just exploring the muscles around this side. Now, if you want to work on any muscles at the top of the pelvic floor that support the bladder more, you just need to come back into the camel shape. Once you've inserted, you can then just spin around and very gently, very, very gently, just work on any muscles here. Now, the pubic bone is right behind the pubic mound and the labia here, so don't press too hard or too fast. Very, very gentle pressure here can work. So again, just working around this side area towards the top. Now to come to the other side, same thing. We don't want to press against the urethra, which is directly behind here. So press down, come under the urethra, and then back up the other side. And same thing, gently exploring any tender areas, mobilizing anything that feels stiff, using your breath to help control any sensations of tension, of vulnerability, of guarding. Working with your breath, really helping your nervous system feel safe and in control with pressure and with movement happening here. So let me show you on another model here. Outside of the pelvic floor, camel shape, working on the superficial aspect of the vaginal entrance and the perineum. So moving up and down, helping these tissues move better. And then when you come internally, we want to come into snake shape, and this then helps you access the inside of the pelvic floor. So this is the sacrum, the base of the spine at the top, bottom, and this is the pubic bone at the top. So urethra here, rectum is here. So again, you can really get deep into these hip muscles. Remember, these are hip muscles up here, and also the pelvic floor muscles as they come right to the back here. Now let me show you why we don't want to press directly against 6 o'clock, because we have the rectum here. So as you're moving from one side to another, lift up and over the rectum and then come to the other side. Now if we're working on the front of the pelvic floor, you come part way in internally, and then you can flip back to camel shape. And look, you don't need to be in very far at all to work around the tissues of the bladder, underneath the bladder, the front of the pelvic floor. So really gentle work here, you're not in too far. And then if you need to come to the other side, you drop down to avoid pressure on the urethra, and then come up to the other side. Now there's no real telling how long you'll spend doing this. It doesn't want to be rushed, but it really depends on your symptoms and the level of tension that you're experiencing. If at any point you're feeling something guard up and tense, just back away, it's okay. focus a bit more on your breathing, perhaps do a bit more pelvic mobility, and then come back to try this another time once you're feeling like you're able to access the pelvic area with more safety. But once you can comfortably enter, once you can comfortably hold some pressure against those tender spots, about 5 to 10 minutes works really, really well, just to ease those tight muscles, help improve blood flow there, help mobilize them for a much healthier and happier pelvic floor.